With over 10 years experience in software integration projects, we're about to hear how one company is making the internet more inclusive, one webpage at a time.
We only started writing code from December of last year, so to get to market in May is incredible.
No unicorns, no brands, just hardworking people who built their business from the ground up, sharing their experience so others can learn. Presented by Larissa Feeney from Kenor. This is Real Business Conversations.
That's just what we do.
Hello, my name is Larissa Feeney. I am CEO and founder at Kenor Finance and Business Services. Today, we're meeting an entrepreneur who is building a technology solution to make the world more inclusive. A lot of the best businesses are built off a personal passion, and our guest has a mission to help people like him with accessibility online. It's a pleasure to welcome founder of Nexus Inclusion, Kyran O'Mahoney.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Great to have you. Kyran, maybe start at the beginning. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your background.
So obviously my name is Kyran O'Mahoney. I've recently founded a company called Nexus Inclusion, but it actually came out of a kind of a long journey in the corporate world to kind of get to this point. I grew up in Ireland with a visual impairment, so I have maybe about 17% of normal vision. So I'd be on the legally blind spectrum, but as you know, I can see a lot of things. And I really, really struggled through school. And I always thought personally, like I wasn't able for subjects, and I really pushed myself to do honors, but suffered really severe eye strain, et cetera, et cetera. Then, went into secondary school, the same thing again. In secondary school, it was exactly the same thing. As I went into college, though, I fell into a computer science degree. I wanted to be a physiotherapist. Thankfully, that didn't happen because I would have made a terrible physiotherapist. And I was literally on my very first day in college. And if you remember back when computers were huge, big white boxes, I couldn't see where the on button was. So I had to ask the person beside me, how do I turn this computer on? So just give you some perspective of where I came from in terms of computer science. And as soon as I hit that button, my world changed. And quite literally, I went from someone that was always sitting at the bottom of the class to gradually coming up and became the person in the class that people were asking for advice of. And the reason for that is because the first time ever I could increase the size of the font, I could buy a bigger screen. All of these things became like enablers for me. So anyway, I got my degree and then announced to my parents that I was going to go off and work in Copperface Jacks for 11 years. So I ended up DJing for many, many years afterwards. But eventually I got back into the role of technology, and I worked in numerous companies in Ireland, from AIB to Ryanair to Dunnes Stores. And I remember distinctly one day about kind of 7 or 8 years ago, I was sitting in a meeting. And I'd gone from always trying to be or stressed about trying to get the biggest screen or being worried about an employer giving me the biggest screen or whatever the case may be. And I was sitting in a meeting room with a 13-inch laptop. And it occurred to me is I haven't thought about my disability in quite a while. And it was almost like this light bulb moment where I was like, I just see technology as this huge enabler for me now. It's not a situation where I get worried about, how I travel around or how I get from A to B. I quite literally use my iPhone every day to commute, to see the numbers on buses and things like that. And one of the stories I love is that every night when I read my little girl her bedtime story, I use my magnifier on my iPhone to read it. So technology to me has just been this huge enabler. So I knew there was something there. There's something in that, and I wanted to bring it to scale. And as you look into our sector that I'm in now, most people would refer to it as the accessibility sector, and there's a huge amount of nonprofit people who are hugely passionate in that. And I worked for one of them for a period of time as well. But there's always this aspiration to become accessible. And I don't think that's the right approach. So why I decided to go down the Nexus Inclusion road as a company is that I wanted to say that accessibility is the lowest entry point. Inclusion and making everyone feel that they have that enablement there is what the real goal should be. And for me, the game changer really was generative AI. So after being a technologist for many, many years, it's difficult to do accessibility. It is because it's different for every person. Sorry. And I always use this term, even with my little girl, I always say, we're all unique. Everyone's unique. Everyone uses technology slightly differently. And that means that ultimately accessibility for websites or accessibility for mobile applications, everyone uses them slightly differently, and that context is missing. But what's the one thing that AI and technology do wonderfully well together is context. So I quite literally over a glass of wine one weekend with my wife, and I was talking about it, and I says, I think this could be huge. I think this could be a business that could scale. From a marketing perspective, when I'm talking to potential investors and things like that, I say, our market is quite literally anyone with a website. If you've got a website, you can be a customer of ours. But the reality for me is that any customer that we sign up to our solution makes the world better and makes the world more equal. And I love that. And I love that approach to things. And I think I'm very lucky to be in a position now where I'm running a company that does have an ambition to go global, but also you get to feel quite good about what you're doing. And that's precious. And I'm really proud of where we are.
Because you're making a difference.
Exactly. Yeah.
To a person, to an individual. So maybe help me understand then what happens. So you talked about context and accessibility and generative AI. So talk to me, if I'm a user of your product then, what would I use it for?
Sure. So actually, maybe if I step one point back and say, why would you use it? The reality is that if you look at the top 1 million websites in the world, less than 4% of them work for people with disabilities. But if you look at the number of people globally who would state they have a disability, you're looking at about 1.5, 1.6 billion people.
Billion people.
Billion people would it be?
Wow.
Yeah. So if you take that even a step further, is that in your family circle, I'm sure you know someone that needs help using technology. And I don't mean that they have a disability. I mean, possibly they might have a neurological issue, or they might be young, or they might be old, or they might have a temporary motor issue, or maybe they broke the wrist, So the latest research tells us that 1 in 4 people need help, like 25%, using technology. What I think is, if you were to talk to any commercial manager that's out there, or any CFO, or any chief operating officer, or anyone that's responsible for conversion on a website, and we said to them, we can increase your potential acquisition rate by 25%, they'll jump at it. Yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Yep. So that's the commercial piece. The second piece is, why would we do it? Well, there's the European Accessibility Act that's coming online this year. And if your listeners aren't aware of that, in June of this year, by the end of June, the European Accessibility Act will come into force across Europe, which effectively states that any digital product, now I'm simplifying a bit, right? But it effectively states that any digital products, so websites, mobile applications, even ATMs and things like that, will need to be fully accessible to people with disabilities and follow a very specific standard to hit that accessibility. And if not, you potentially open to litigation. So I kind of say, from a commercial standpoint, for us, this is like the GDPR for the the digital accessibility world, or the accessibility world. But again, what Nexus Inclusion does is we see that as the starting point, the start of the journey. We're actually going to, work with people to make good, inclusive experiences. So what our company does then is that a lot of people or competitors, let's say in the digital accessibility space, will spend a lot of time finding issues. What's wrong? What's broken? And it always came across to me as very finger pointy. If I look at a website, it's not accessible. Oh, no, it's not accessible. Well, okay, that's great. That's a great first step to identify that there's a problem. But how do you fix that problem? How do you make it not only compliant with the legislation that's coming in, but how do you make that a really good user inclusive experience? So when people engage with your brand, or they engage with your website, they get that kind of moment and go, I wasn't expecting this to work because I use a screen reader, or because I use magnification, or because maybe, I just assumed the video wouldn't have subtitles. And a lot of those basic things that some of us take for granted, it will just work. So our solution effectively, it finds the issue, but that's like 5% of the problem. But what we do is we spend a lot of time then looking at how we can offer an inclusive solution for people. And our SaaS solution is built on that contextual element. So how would it work well for someone with a visual impairment? How would it work well with someone auditory, or a perceivable issue, or an operable issue? And that's what we really focus on. So our solution focuses on not only finding the problem, but giving really good advice around user experience. And we go right down to the code level, but we also go to the product owner level or the executive level, or, let's say for the SME that's out there, they don't really want to have a team of people working on this. So we give them the tools to make them actionable in a very easy manner and create that good experience. And then ultimately, of course, be compliant with the legislation as well, which is equally important. So that's what we're doing. We're hoping to be live with our first instance about mid-May of this year. Yeah, it's all hands on deck. We actually reviewed coincidentally, today is one of the end of our development cycles called sprints, and I actually got goosebumps. I was so excited about what the team have been building, and we've got a great team behind us. We've got some great people working with us too.
That sounds really exciting. It really does. It sounds amazing. So maybe talk to me about the team you have then. And it is pre-revenue. So are your team internal or have you outsourced the development?
Yeah, it's a mixture of both. From a leadership perspective, our chief operating officer is a former IT director from Ryanair, so really good, commercial technology experience. We have our head of accessibility and inclusion is the former user experience lead from Bank of Ireland. So we've been really lucky in getting some really experienced people on board. Some of them have invested as well in the company, which is wonderful. And then in terms of internal staff, we've 6 internal staff at the moment. We're hoping to grow to about 12 over the course of 2025 as we get ready for launch. And then everyone else is outsourced at the moment. So one of the areas of being a technologist for so long, I've been in a position to build up relationships with many outsourcing companies that I would know and trust. So it was great to be able to bring them on board again and partner with them, because I know they know what I'm like to work with, and I know what my expectations around delivery are. So we've done really well in terms of a lot of those negotiations. And listen, developers are expensive. There's no other way around it. And particularly when you have a team of 20 developers, you really have to be careful with money. And it's actually something. My experience working as someone that's self-employed or running a business before, and again, it's why I think the holistic offering from Knorr is so important, is that you have to watch the pennies. You have to be, fully cognizant. What's your cash flow now? What's it running to? And particularly with us, we are pre-revenue, so everything we spend is shortening our burn rate, or shortening our time. So our entire focus at the moment is product. But that's the most costly part of what we're doing until we start going to market. So thankfully for us, it's a shorter period than a lot of technology startups. I mean, we only started writing code from December of last year, so to get to market in May is incredible. But
it is incredible. It's very, very fast. And why are you able to do that so fast then, Kyran? What is it, because of your expertise that you're able to drive it faster, given your background?
I think it's more like I've learned the hard way through other projects, and the risk that I've taken here is bring on more people to deliver faster and become, get revenue in. But a lot of startups, I mean, we're very lucky in that our funding round went really, really well. Without talking about numbers, but like we certainly did better than I had anticipated. And I think a lot of people that decided to back us were very much in a position where they got it. They saw the commercial potential here. And I don't see us as an Irish-based company. I see us as a broader company. And I remember even talking to one of the bigger investors at one point. And he's gone, "We need to make sure that you've got the level of cash that you need to get this to market as quickly as possible." So my point to him is that what I'll leverage on then is that I leverage my expertise. I leverage our chief operating officer's expertise at negotiating supplier contracts and things like that. But we're in a position now to get incredible value for the developers that we have, but also we're product. And in fact, this is literally the very first piece of external, I suppose, marketing that we've done. We haven't spoken about what we're building at all. Like, so this is still.
So we have exclusivity here, Kyran.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
I'm delighted. Well, it sounds amazing, but you've made a really good point, and I just want to pick you up on it because it's something that the vast majority of entrepreneurs, well, speaking for myself and for a lot of us that I know, struggle with. You've said it. You've gone hard at this, right? You've raised the money and you've hired aggressively to get it to market by May. The temptation is to do it slower, I think, or to do it cheaper, or to have less people and to maybe overestimate what you can do, or maybe to, hope you're going to get to market by May, but knowing realistically that you don't have the team to do it. So you seem to have done it the right way? Because I'm guessing that you probably have competitors who are probably doing the same thing or are at an earlier stage. And there's a timeline here. You have to get to the market as quickly as you can.
Yeah. And like this is a competitive marketplace, and it's certainly with people that have realized that there's a gap in the market here, particularly with the European Accessibility Act coming online. And we do watch, like, Ireland has a great culture of innovation and technology. And there's other companies out there that have begun to pop up, and I always say competition is great, but that does mean that you have to get to market. We're not actively looking for funding at the moment. The only thing we're doing is focused on product. And the gamble that we've taken is like you're saying, let's build a team in, get this out to a point that, allow us to be in the market and established as quickly as possible. Now, to do that, you do need a level of expertise from product development, from technology, from marketing. But we're lucky that we've kind of, when I say lucky, I've basically plagued people that I've worked with for many, many years to come on board. And I think I got some advice at the start of 2024 when I was originally toying about what's my next step. And the piece of advice that I got that I really ran with, and it's paid out to be so valuable, is that surround yourself with the people that you trust and the people that you believe in. And that's what I did. And when I explained my idea and I sat down and said, listen, I know we work together and here's my idea. Would you like to be involved? And come back to me about how you would like that to be. And thankfully, we even have a team of advisors that have just people that I know and respect. And I've said, okay, here's how you do this, and here's how I approach that one. And there's huge amounts of support out there in Ireland. But I think I've been working in tech for so long now that, having that network around me is great,
Yeah, that's just what I was going to say. You've really drawn on that network, haven't you?
Oh, 100%. So, and even it was a funny situation when we originally, because we only kicked off like formally late last year, as I was talking to so many people and saying, and you go through this, and I'm sure every entrepreneur or startup or founder is out there, they have the idea and then it's, oh my God, how am I going to pay for it?
Yeah.
And that's really it. And then you might have a co-founder, you might bring on a friend that's the CTO or someone else can act as CEO, and you think you can make it happen. And I really think that's setting up your company is so incredibly stressful. It takes up so much time. But for us, we were slightly different because I'd done it before. I ran my own business before in entertainment, and I was joking about working in Copperface Jacks, but I ran an entertainment company for 15 years.
That's a great business now, Kyran. Copperface Jacks is a great business.
Yeah, and I used to do lighting at weddings. It's not a crazy business to be in. Yeah, I used to, and I always thought it was very funny because I'm almost blind and I was providing lighting. But and that was great for many years. So I'd learned, and then in my previous role, which was also a startup, like I kind of learned a lot from the business aspect and how to approach it, what to do right, what to do wrong, as opposed to anything else. But the first thing I'd always say is, cash flow is just so critical that you're on top of that. What are you spending? What will you spend? Not just today, but what are you spending for the next 18 months? And then, it's great having a great product idea, but if you can't get it to market, you're not making money.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, what your previous experience has taught you is that even though the idea for this product was born out of a passion and a lived experience, why that's important, there also has to be a commercial market for the product. And in your case, there also has to be a willingness on the part of investors to invest in the product in order to get it to market rapidly. And that's just what I want to ask you about now is the investor, that process, because you said you're not actively raising right now, but you have done, and you obviously have a runway and you've got all that figured out. So I have two questions. How did you find the fundraising process initially? I'm guessing that was pre-seed or seed of some type. And what's your next step from a fundraising perspective?
So fundraising, I've gone through it twice now in my career, and this time successfully. And what I would take away from it is that you're like a walking salesman. You got to be ready for a lot of no's, and you got to be ready for. People told me your deck is too big, your deck is too small, there's not enough detail, there's too much detail. What's your exit? I'm like, it's there. That's not the exit I'm looking for. You get so much contradictory advice. And what I've learned after this experience is it's really, everyone obsesses about an investment deck. Investment decks just get you the meeting. So keep it simple, make it obviously professional. Don't remove typos and stuff like that. But it's the meeting that's the most important piece. When you get into the room with, and we've got multiple investors. So what I'm saying is every one of them has a different personality and is looking for a different thing from you. Some are looking for the passion for you as a founder, and you got to bring that to the table and say, I have this idea and this is why I will deliver it. I will deliver it because of the passion I have. And the second thing is you need to be really clear with your numbers and be ready to be challenged in your numbers. Like from the very start of our fundraising round, I'd created a full cash flow analysis, full projections. I'd broken all our products down. So no matter what audience I had in a room with me, and they said, well, what's your expectations of X at 2026, 2027? I had that straight away. And I think that gives a lot of confidence, to people. So, because ultimately you tell the story first and then people want to know how they're going to get the money back. EIS has been a big win for us, to be honest, particularly that, we haven't gone with VCs. We were too early stage for VCs, frankly. And I think what's been a little bit unusual about our approach is that with the team we have on board, building products is what our expertise is. So we were really selling our competency to deliver a product as opposed to, just take a chance on this as an idea. And that's what we sold, which is a little bit unusual because, in seed, certainly, and even pre-seed, or even when you talk to a lot of VCs, they really want to see something working, where I was going, I have an idea.
Yeah. Because you're right, because they all say, have your minimum viable product, know what you're doing. So you didn't even have that. You just, you had an idea, but...
I didn't even have a Figma. I had nothing. I had nothing written down.
But you had your expertise, your background, and everybody else around you as well.
Yeah, and exactly. And I was very conscious of that because we got quite far with one particular VC. Now it didn't work out, but like they're saying, can you even just show me a Figma? I said, no, I'm not spending. The process I want to follow is that when I have the money and you believe in the idea, I will spend the next 6 to 8 weeks making sure that's perfect. Otherwise, I'm just making it up because I haven't had the time to put in the analysis and the product side of things. Now that is from what I've learned is slightly atypical, and the people that ultimately, it was mostly high net worth and people like that, but they had to buy into the concept. So we really sold the concept. But
you obviously had the conviction, Kyran, because even having the confidence to say no to that request.
Yeah.
Like, you were 100% certain. Like you were able to say no, because a lot of people in your position would find themselves flapping about, try to produce the information in a way that the person wants it, rather than say, no, this is what we're doing and this is how we're presenting it. And you can tweak it a little bit depending on your audience, but in general, this is the data. That tells me a lot about you and your conviction and your product and your plans. And that not everybody is going to say yes, and that's okay.
You know what? That was learning, I have to say. It's looking back on it now in hindsight, but I can't believe I just said that out loud in a public forum. But anyway, but that I just said no. But like, I had a roadmap to success that I needed to follow, and for me now, we haven't been successful yet. Also, stress. I'm not being. We're lucky to get the funding. We still have to release something and make some money, and that's actually the one that keeps me awake at night at the moment. I used to joke back when I was a CTO, like the things that keep me awake at night are cybersecurity. Whereas now the thing that keeps me awake is that, okay, we're releasing in May. I really hope people, because you're taking your gamble is, will the product hit the market the way you want it? And will people buy it? And will people utilize it and give you the feedback you want? And there's nothing worse being on a call with a potential customer and they say, oh, does it do this? And you go, no. But it should,
You say, no, but that's a great idea. Leave it with us.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. And I just write that down and talk to our developers. Yeah. So, and that has happened in previous roles where I was talking to someone very senior and they said, oh, but I think what we really need is this. And I remember thinking, oh no, I got it wrong. Now I didn't say it out loud, but that's what I was thinking. But there is a huge risk to this, but I think all we can do at this point is, like I said, focus on the product, use the experience we have behind us, and try and make the best product we can.
I was going to say, if you were to speak to somebody who was earlier on in the process than you are right now, so you've gone through your first funding round, it's closed, it was successful. Congratulations on that. You're now focusing on the product, and you now have 3 or 4 months to get this product out to market and to get the feedback, as you say. If you were to give advice to somebody who's starting on the fundraising journey, so where you were 12 months ago, what would you say? Is there anything that you would do better or you would do differently the next time?
I think when I look back on it, I think I like every founder started off and literally started Googling and trying to find them and read as much as I could. And, you know, when you're starting and you're sitting alone on your kitchen table or whatever, and you're trying to figure out, like, where do I find a high net worth person, or where do I find, you know, someone that's looking to do an EIS investment, or, you know, the first thing I would say is that do your research, you know, learn about cap tables, learn about, you know, what the potential, you know, ways that people can put money into a business are. Listen to podcasts such as this. You know, there was one I remember that you guys did earlier on, I think it was on EIS, even to be able to talk the right things like that, because I knew nothing about that. But being
and to know what the terminology means,
exactly,
like things like EBITDA or recurring revenue or working capital or even cash flow. Yeah, things like that, even to understand the lingo.
Like it's like, you know, what a product owner doesn't know how to write the code, but they know the terminology to interact with a development team. It's the same thing. Like if you're in an investment meeting and they're like, "What's your expected EBITDA?" and you're like, "What's that?" or "What's your projection for X, Y, and Z?" and you don't know it. I do think that doesn't give confidence. But you don't have to have an accountancy degree. You just need to do a little bit of research and see what it is like. And then I remember one time a couple of years ago, I was talking to an investor at a conference, and he said to me, like, "Are you open to a convertible note?" And I went, "No idea."
The answer is always yes,
like,
Kyran.
Sure,
absolutely,
yeah.
Open to anything.
look confident and go, "Yeah, absolutely." And then they're like Googling it, you know. But there is a certain bit of that. So I think step one is do your research. I think I really want to emphasize that advice that I got earlier is that you really have to leverage your own network, your personal network, you know. And that doesn't mean go and ask everyone for money. It means tell people about what you're doing and ask them if they want to be involved. You know, it doesn't necessarily be money. Like, so sometimes in one particular instance for us, like, it was a recommendation of a recommendation of a recommendation. And then I got a phone call from someone and they said, "Listen, I've been talking to this person who knows this person who you did a pitch to. Is there any chance you could do it for me?" And that person ended up being an investor, and I'd never met them before, you know? So again, you know, it's leveraging the people around you that you know, and asking for help and asking for support. And that's the other thing I think is really, really important. Like, Ireland has an incredible startup culture, an incredible suite of supports to support founders and support startups, and just engage with them, you know, and they're like, people I found, you know, even like Enterprise Ireland, they mightn't be able to invest in you straight away, but they'll give you as much advice as you have. And we got supported by Leo very early on, which was great.
I was just going to ask you that, actually. Have you availed of Leo or AI? Yeah, so you have.
So yeah, we were really early when we went to Leo, and we were lucky enough to get supported by a feasibility study, which enabled us to do a lot early before we'd actually secured any investment. So that was really good. And actually, I have to say, the team we were engaging with the South Dublin team, excellent. Like, if you had a question, or, you know, if you wanted to be partnered with a mentor that could give you additional advice, just brilliant. You know, I ended up doing two different people, and both of them were like, I really want to help you with this. But that, you know, that's supports that are out there. And then as you transition into EI and we started those conversations, like, again, there's like a field of supports that are available. And even I have to be honest, with some of the Irish-based VCs that we spoke to. Now, as I said, we didn't end up getting investment VCs, but they were very much right. We love the idea. For X reason, we can't do it now, but here's the 3 or 4 milestones you need to hit, and then come back to us. You know, so
yeah,
I had zero success with trying any VC outside of Ireland, you know, but the community here in Ireland is excellent.
But I think learning that, see what you were told from those VCs, Kyran. So, you know, okay, you're not where we need you to be now, but if you were to get recurring revenue to X, or EBITDA to Y, or, you know, X number of customers, whatever the case might be, whatever the metric is, you know now that whenever you get there, you'll be back knocking on their door. Nothing is a waste of your time whenever you're at that stage, because you don't know who you're having a coffee with. You don't know who they might know, who their network is. And ultimately you might come back to them in 2, 3, 5 years time. You know, it's all good. It's all very positive.
Yeah.
What have you found personally the hardest part of this journey so far?
I'm going to answer it in 2 ways, if that's okay, now that I think about it. the one thing that everyone says is as a founder, you need to be resilient. And that's totally true, right? And you need to be, believe and just drive forward. But what I actually struggle with a little bit, would you believe, is in this process is that because it's my company, I have to prioritize my family as well. Like I would happily sit here and just keep going, get up at 8 o'clock and work through. And because, you feel that personal sense of responsibility, and now you should use that as a driving factor. But, it's also important that you get out and go to the gym, or you go do your favorite sport, or, you stop when your kids are home from school. Like one of the board members the other day actually only said to me, gym every day, lunchtime, get out and get away from your desk. Like and it was like, oh, actually, I've barely taken a lunch in 2 weeks, and like little things like that, you need to prioritize as well, because, and even after a week or whatever of doing that, like I genuinely feel now I'm coming to meetings more refreshed. I'm thinking clearer. So find that balance is hugely important, particularly if you're that kind of personality type. And I think as a founder, a lot of people are, or a business owner, you just want to give your entirety to it. But, you also have to have a life.
Getting that balance, though, is really difficult.
I have found it a huge challenge, I have to say, because you realize that now I'm working from home, obviously, because we're a startup, we don't have a thing. So I'm not commuting. So my commute is like a minute walk down the garden. But, my wife would sometimes say to me, God, when's the last time you left the house? And I go, you should never have to think about that.
Yeah.
So now I make sure I walk my child to school in the morning. I make sure, finishing at X time every day and putting that structure in place, because it makes you better at what you're doing when you're coming to work the next day. If you're coming to work tired and irritable, you're just annoying everyone around you, as opposed to being a leader and embracing that. And that's really important, I think. And that was hard learned, I can tell you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I've been through that, so I can identify completely. And it's your responsibility as a leader of this company to be in it for the long haul, to your employees, to your investors, to your customers, to your family. You've got a responsibility to be able to do this for the long term. And it's just not possible to work at a certain level over the long term. It's just not possible. You hit a wall and collapse, Kyran, I have one last question for you, and that's in relation to the future. So you've been a technologist now for 20 or 25 years, I'm going to say.
Close to it, yeah.
What are your hopes for change in the future? Like you talked a little bit about AI, and I mean, what would you like to see in the future that we currently don't have right now?
I was debating whether I would say about this, but I think I'm going to, if you don't mind. I think at the moment, it's clear that diversity, equity, inclusion is incredibly important, right? And I think topically at the moment, it's been seen as a negative as opposed to a positive. And what I would say is that companies need to double down on diversity, equity, inclusion. If you look at, there is companies out there that are using that. I've always loved that term, double down. You do inclusion not because it's easy, but because it's hard. And as many people can attest to, is that the things in your life that you're most proud of are the things that were the most difficult, certainly in my experience, and it isn't easy to make accommodations for everyone, or it isn't easy to make a website. Well, I would think it's easy, but there is a level of complexity to it. There's a lot of dedication is probably a better way to put it, to make websites, make digital products as usable by everyone. But you know what? It's the right thing to do. And I think fundamentally at my core, I want to be an advocate for that going forward, and let people know that, just because something is not the easiest thing to do doesn't mean it's not worthwhile.
I absolutely agree with you. And whenever you're talking, I'm actually thinking of the D&I, yes, and also the debate that's going on at the moment around remote working versus in-person working versus hybrid working, and the companies that are bringing their people back to the office. And the question is, I'm asking is, why are they bringing people back to the office? I mean, do they have data to suggest that productivity has reduced, the outputs have been affected in some way, or is it easier to bring people back to the office? In which case, back to your point, is it the right thing to do, or is it the easy thing to do?
Yeah, and we thought a lot about this, and in previous roles, if you look at some of the bigger companies, they always use collaboration. We want to be on collaboration amongst our teams, and I think some of it comes down to, frankly, if people were really honest, they're scared that their employees aren't delivering. that's just a management issue. That's a performance issue. That's not how you work from home. So again, I think it's the easy option. To your point, I think so. We're a fully remote company, and we have staff in not just in Ireland and Europe, but in lots of places. And I got off a call earlier today, and the team were delivering and presenting, and I was saying like, wow, like almost goosebumps, And I think there's a wonderful caption from Spotify or Shopify, I can't quite remember, but they say, we trust our employees, we're not bringing them back to the office, And it does take trust as a leader to do it. But again, I think it's down to the harder way to do something is typically, in my view, the right way, because, you're picking the easy option, And one thing I've always found is that, you see a lot of emails now that said, I'm emailing you out of office hours, please don't reply. I think that's so important to build that culture that I like to walk my little girl to school in the morning, but that means I'm a little bit late to start. So I work a little bit later in the evening, or maybe I might catch up with something on a Saturday. And that works for me. But I always would say to people, if they jump online, then to answer, no, I didn't expect that. You have to give that balance. And I think that, developing, if a staff member is performing, why do you care where they work?
Exactly. Let's base it on outputs. We're assuming that because people are sitting in offices, that they're working well. And that's a very dangerous assumption. They could well be working well, but they may not be if that's all you're looking at. It's it's fascinating. Kyran, I could sit and talk to you all day. Thank you very much for your time. I think you've given loads of great, valuable advice to founders and entrepreneurs who are starting their businesses and maybe starting on the fundraising journey. Thank you very much. This is Kyran O'Mahoney, founder of Nexus Inclusion. Thank you.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to Real Business Conversations with Knor. For more information on this episode, see the description area of this podcast or visit our website, knor.com. Remember to press follow on your podcast player now so you'll get a brand new episode every single month. This podcast is produced by DustPod.io for Knor Finance and Business Services.